Legend of War here, and today we're going to be going through the latest blog post, the Ogre Kingdoms Campaign Mechanics. Now, there's a lot of stuff to go through here, and some of it's really good, and some of it, we'll get to it. But yeah, I'm not just going to be reading this out word for word. I've already read through it. I've got my thoughts on it, and I'll just be going through it. I'll mainly be going through some of the screenshots, but not reading some of the bullet points. If you want to read the bullet points in every word yourself, I would recommend going to the actual blog post itself. I'll leave a link in the description. It's probably best waiting about 30 minutes after this video is released before clicking it, because usually when the blog goes live, there's like a 404 error. So yeah, just wait half an hour and then it's usually fine. Alright, so the first thing is camps. Now, ogres are, I think, the first race in the history of Total War games that are actually able to build their own cities wherever they want, and that's the camp mechanic. So got a screenshot here that's a bit more zoomed in and high resolution. So camps, this is an awesome mechanic, at least on paper. It would be interesting to see how it works in theory, in practice. So the way that camps work is that these are your major settlements. These are your primary settlements where you'll be doing most of your stuff, and your armies will build these camps in their current location. Now, you can build a camp anywhere. You can build it in your friendly territory, you can build it in enemy territory, you probably can build it in the Chaos Waste, you can build it in the mountains. You can't build it in impassable terrain, so the enemy have to be able to actually get it, but you can build it wherever you want. I imagine that you'll be able to build like multiple of them in the same region, or you could spread them out across the world, giving you a lot of freedom with this stuff here. There is a limit to how many that you can build, which you can increase via the tech tree. At least, I don't know if there's other ways to do it, but so far it seems like it's only through the tech tree, and we'll get onto more of that a bit later. But yeah, these are your major settlements. Now, the Ogre Kingdoms, their armies can capture every other settlement on the campaign map, but every other settlement, even if it's a big city like Altdorf or Lothern, will only ever be at maximum a tier 3 minor city. So let's just say hypothetically you capture Altdorf. I imagine it would just give you 4 build slots and you'd be limited to tier 3. So you have to rely very heavily on ogre camps. But having access to being able to just put these down anywhere will mean that you can put these in choke points. You could maybe set up a string of them, so that like the economy ones, so that you get the ones in a really safe position, have all the economy stuff, and the ones at the edge be fully defensible. We don't have all the details on what all these buildings do, but this, I'm really looking forward to this. Now, there are a few things that I have some concerns with this, which I hope Creative Assembly are addressing. And the thing is, we don't know everything about the game yet. So just spitballing, and I hope if Creative Assembly is watching, these are things that they are thinking about. So with the ogre camps, I don't know if the defense buildings here just give you an automated garrison that you just don't pay for, but you definitely can put units into the camp, and you do have to pay for them, as seen here. Much in the same way of sort of like an immobile Black Ark. They can recruit their own units, or you can transfer the units to and from it, and they'll be a bit cheaper than in your main armies. Now, these ogre camps, if they're in enemy territory, they'll constantly raid, so that's good. But if it's in friendly territory, then there's actually either way, friendly or enemy territory, it has a sphere of influence and gives various buffs to armies that are doing anything within there, so like an extra income from post-battle loot, extra replenishment, that kind of stuff within there. And apparently it's fairly large, but that's fairly vague, so we'll just have to wait and see what fairly large actually means. Maybe it'll cover several provinces, maybe it'll have the same sort of area of effect of a Black Ark, which is quite large. But one thing to be concerned about here is supply lines. Now, I hope that Creative Assembly are addressing supply lines in Game 3. There's indication that they will, because of Troy. It seems like they were experimenting with an administration system, which definitely seemed better with what they did with Troy than the current supply line system, because the current supply line system, it definitely limits player choice, especially if you're playing on the harder difficulty, because when you pay an extra 15% extra upkeep for every new army that you recruit, regardless of what's in your army, it does not force people, but encourage people to have fewer armies that are... It basically encourages doom stacks. Now, some people hate that the game encourages doom stacks, and that's fine. I like using doom stacks, right? But one thing that I don't like it is when they limit player choice, and that's one thing that supply lines currently do. Now, if the Ogre Kingdoms suffer from supply lines penalties, right, what could end up happening is that the reduced upkeep cost bonus here might get completely dwarfed by the supply lines, and then eventually being absolutely useless, and then getting to the point where putting any units in your camps might be so expensive that it's just not worth doing, sort of thing, leaving them vulnerable. So I hope that they've definitely tweaked that, because currently with supply lines, because every faction's economy does not work the same, having a blanket 15% apply to every single settled faction apart from a select few is really bad. Because High Elves, as an example, High Elves and Dark Elves, they are barely impacted by supply lines at all because they are high economy races. They make lots of passive income through taxes and various other means. They don't rely on plundering. You know, the more cities they have, the more they expand, the more money they make, because their economy, it kind of... it multiplies over time. And then you've got economies like the Wood Elves and Norska and the Greenskins, which rely less on taxes, especially in Norska's case, and a lot more on plundering. Now, the thing is, with plundering, is that you need an army to actually go and do the plundering, and as that army continues to get more and more expensive, the amount of plunder that you have to get in order to sustain that army eventually becomes unsustainable, because their taxes don't make up for it. Now, ogres would probably fit into that category, whereas I can't imagine that they're going to make thousands of gold per turn through their camps and through their minor settlements, and so they're going to have to rely on plundering and other mechanics. So supply lines, if it is being implemented into Warhammer 3, would hurt the ogres significantly, especially because they also don't have walls. At least now they've got minor settlement battles, which there's more information about that coming soon, I imagine. But yeah, it could impact them quite badly. Now, I imagine that ogre camps don't increase your supply lines, but will still suffer from them. So in the early stages of the campaign, maybe you can have your armies in your camps be pretty much free, but later on the campaign you'll be paying almost an indistinguishable amount between your camps and your armies because of the way that supply lines work, which is currently what happens with Dark Elves. Like, do this as a test. Play a legendary difficulty campaign, get up to like turn 200, get yourself millions of gold, and then recruit 2 armies, one of them being a Black Ark and one of them being a main army. Fully upgrade the Black Ark, fully upgrade the main army. Put them side by side and look at the upkeep difference. It's fucking the same, just about. It's because of supply lines. There'll be like a very minor difference between the two, even though Black Arks have huge amounts of upkeep reductions. It just gets completely eclipsed by supply lines. I'm talking, you need to have like tons and tons of other armies increasing the supply lines. You can see what the difference is at that point. Anyway, let's move back to the blog here. Overall, though, I absolutely love the idea of this mechanic. This is possibly one of the best day one DLC mechanics that they've ever had. So really, really like this. Applaud this. I just hope that they're thinking about those things. If there's no supply lines for ogres and they have other things that stop them from snowballing, fantastic. That's exactly what they should be doing. But if we go into Warhammer 3 and they suffer from 15% supply lines, fuck me, that's bad. They shouldn't be doing that. It's been around for way too long for their low economy races. Ogres are already going to have enough problems to deal with as it is, so hopefully it's going to be addressed. I think it will, but sometimes you gotta say it anyway. Okay, so over here we move on to the next mechanic, and we've got contracts. Now, as much as I love the idea of this mechanic, I hate this, because contracts, at least how it's presented, just seem like low impact fluff. So the way it works is that every 10 turns you'll be presented with 3 potential contracts. Bing, bing, bing. For attacking cities, killing characters, destroying armies. These will come from factions you're not at war with and offer money for completion, and also relations. You also get a significant relationship boost with the hiring factions you complete the contract. Significant at 25. I kind of feel like whoever wrote that, you just saw my thumbnail stuff there, doesn't understand what impact is, because 25 extra relations after completing a mission is shit. Okay, there are, unless they've really changed the way diplomacy works in Warhammer 3, but I can't imagine that the actual values will have changed much, right? A 25% boost with Darkland Orcs or any of these is garbage, especially considering you get one of these every 10 turns. So after you've done it, I imagine it decays at 1 point per turn. So after 25 turns, it's gone. You would need to be getting constant contracts from the exact same person over and over again to have any real impact. And also, the amount of money being offered here, that is insulting. I really hope that this here was not like a late game issue for a contract, and this was like turn 1, the first one that you were offered, because like contracts should be a big part of the Ogre mechanics, and it's good that it is being represented, but holy shit, have they dropped the ball with this one, because this is not good. There should be a lot more to this mechanic. This is not, I really want to emphasize how crap this is, how poorly thought out. There should be the option to reject certain missions, because like this one here specifically, I am insulted that that would be offered. I would never accept that mission. Also, another thing to keep in mind is that other factions get missions anyway, and you know what, most of the time I ignore those missions because they're low impact crap. And if a central theme to the ogres is missions, right, this is crap. I mean, other races have got better concepts of contracts than this, so they've already done better than this in the past. So for example, we'll go with the lower end of the spectrum first. With the lizard men, you've got Oxyodal stuff. Now Oxyodal's missions aren't great, but they're better than this. Okay, they have way more impact. You can do them practically instantly, so you don't have to run around the map with this guy who's fucking hiding forever. That might be a 5-10 turn mission to go and sort out. For that amount of money is garbage. And also it progresses Oxyodal towards his campaign objectives, right? And also if he doesn't do them, he gets penalties. Then you've got other lizard men who, well, including Oxyodal, get regular missions for blessed units, okay? Which usually the missions themselves are something that you would just do normally, like sack a settlement, win a battle, or you know, kill this many units in battle. It's something that you're going to do anyway, and then you're given a blessed unit, which is a very, very powerful bonus, right? Whereas this might be completely out of the way for you to go do, and there's no option here to just be like, I'm not wasting my time on this. Reject. You have to wait 10 turns. This here is similar to the Nagarath mechanic with the assassins. Now, I don't mind the Nagarath assassin. I think that it's actually better than this, but here's some issues that happen with the Nagarath assassin mission. You get 3 choices to begin with, and I think you're given 20 turns to go and assassinate them. Now, here are some issues. Sometimes the game will choose assassin targets that are simply too far away. Like, even if you beeline straight for that character, you will not reach it in time. Another problem is that if somebody else eliminates that character, you're not given the option to re-roll it, and you have to wait until the full 20 turns is up, even if you do the other contracts, before you're given new ones. But one thing that is good about it, if you do manage to actually wipe out all 3 of the assassin contracts, and the bonuses from them are also really significant. You get extra relations with other high elves, reduced upkeep cost, lots of extra influence, and tons of cash. Like, way more impactful than this. So, man, they're really dropping the ball with this kind of stuff. And this is like from early game stuff. Like, if you think about turn 1 Nagarath, like there's one for like killing Lockyer Fellheart, which is usually fairly easy to do, and it's like thousands of gold to get it if you get it done. And then you've also got Clan Eshin with their missions, and their missions are done instantly. You just need to go in and go do it, and you get tons of gold, you get some food, and you get relations with other factions. So basically, contracts is something that already exists among a lot of other factions in Warhammer 2, and they do it way better than this. So I really want Creative Assembly to go back and have a look at this and be like, okay, this is shit. Let's just make this a lot better, okay? Because this is low impact. Basically, I can see this in the late campaign being completely ignored. Like, this has 0 impact unless these numbers put a couple of zeros on them. I'm just going to completely ignore it. Like, I wouldn't, as an ogre, I would not get out of bed for 500 gold, let alone go kill this character for 500. Fuck that. For 25 relation with that, for a Darkland Orc, unreliable faction, add a 0 onto that, you know? I am not interested in 25. This one over here, the middle one here, the Western Provinces, so that's, I forget his name already. Something Ming. It wants me to capture an actual settlement. That's okay, because I'd probably go and do that anyway, and the treasury bonus. So, like, if I was going to go capture Taitsu, hey, that's just a bonus 3,000 gold, so that's no big deal. But yeah, some of these, I really hope they have a look at it, because this should be a central theme to the ogres, and that is, they've not sold me on this. In fact, this is not good. So I hope they go back to that. Luckily, they've got other things in here that will compensate for this being shit, but they really need to have another pass at that. Big time. I'm dead serious about it. Alright, so next thing to look at is meat. It wouldn't be a Warhammer 3 race if they didn't have a unique resource of their own, so whereas Sinch has grimoires, these guys here have meat, and the Skaven have food. So it seems to be a low number resource. What I mean by that is that you're not going to be getting thousands of them every battle or something like that. Whereas, you know, with Sinch you need hundreds and thousands or whatever to enact your various plans. This is a low number one. So every ogre unit has an upkeep. This says here separate upkeep with food as well as meat as well as gold. Now I'm curious as to whether or not every unit is going to be. Because it says here, 1 unit, 1 meat. Now, when they do something basic like that, like Creative Assembly does a great job a lot of the time, but sometimes it doesn't seem like they understand how the game works a lot of the time. When they do shit like that, what that does is it makes low tier units less viable. Because if I'm gonna pay 1 meat for an ogre piece of shit unit, or 1 meat for, you know, that, I forget what it's called, the bloody Rhinoc or whatever. I'm going to pay for the Rhinoc. You know, what 1 unit, 1 meat consumed does is it means that you get a better bang for your buck by making doom stacks. And people have been pretty vocal. Like, there's nothing wrong with making doom stacks, but they very often make these mechanics in a way that players like myself will be like, well, I'm just going to make the strongest army I can because I'm going to get better bang for my buck that way. Because if I recruit a stronger army, I'll bash up more gits, green skin, whatever, and I'll get more food. And so it's just better bang for buck. Whereas if I'm stingy with my army and just recruit basic units, I'm only going to beat 1 army every several turns and then need to replenish my forces. I'm not going to get as much meat. So, yeah, that's something that they should think about. You know, I don't think it should be something like extreme, whereas an ogre unit uses 1 meat, and a giant or whatever uses 500 meat, something ridiculous like that. But it should be a bit more than the basic unit, or else you're gravitating towards doomstacks. And then you can also sacrifice meat to the Great Maw for these sort of rites and rituals. And these are just straight up buffs, which is good. There's no downside to this at all. I think this is good resource. It's not super impactful, but yeah, only 1 of them can be enacted at a time. I don't know if this cost increases over time either. It's fine if it doesn't. I can imagine that if you win a battle, you're probably going to get about maybe 5 to 20 food, largely depending on how many units they have. But we don't know the exact numbers, and you're probably going to get some meat from various buildings as well. I think it's going to be pretty similar to how the Skaven work with their food mechanic. But anyway, you've got Bloody and Raw for plus 10 extra melee attack. Come and get it for 20 extra campaign movement range. These two here seem really good. Campaign movement range is definitely something that I like, because I really like to be able to catch my enemies that are trying to run away from me. And yeah, that'll be really good, I think. Fill your bellies, global recruitment duration -2. I probably won't be using that too much, but I can imagine it in an emergency situation. That's good. Give me gut magic, winds of magic, power reserve, +5 per turn. That's cool. So yeah, there's no downside to really any of these, apart from, you know, just spending the meat. So that's cool. That actually has impact. So it's good. And then we got the big names over here. Okay. So I've got a closer zoomed up one over here. Okay. So big names. This is kind of like the Val mechanic with Bretonnia. in that there's a separate tab in their details and skills with these big names. So every single character, so that's legendary lords, and heroes, and if they ever get legendary heroes, they'll get it as well, will have they'll have 4 choices of big names. Now these big names will be preset when the unit is recruited, and for the legendary lords it's always the same for them. So there is a big pool of potential big names. So I imagine that every hero that recruits is basically going to pick 4 random ones that you can get, and then you need to unlock them. So Noblar Kicker, win a battle with 5 Noblar units in your army, and then you get Unbreakable for Noblar units, all units in the army, and so on and so forth. Now you can only activate one of them at a time, and it seems that there's a cooldown before you can switch them. That's cool. I think in theory that is pretty damn simple, and that's not a bad thing. And you get something for just playing your campaign, which is good. You know, I wouldn't really go out of my way to get it, because if we have a look at some of these big names, they're not impactful at all. So win a battle against Skaven, melee attack +12 when fighting against Skaven. That's not for the entire army, I imagine, although some of it is obscured. If it was for the entire army, that's different. But if it's just for the character, then I mean, that's okay, but not great. Death Cheater, lose a battle and survive, so I'm not going to prioritize doing that. Passive ability Death Cheater, don't know what that does, so we'll have to look into that. Noblar Kicker, so unbreakable for Noblar units. I mean, Noblar units are probably going to be low leadership, so making them unbreakable, I guess, is okay. But are you really, as a ogre player, going to prioritize Noblars in your army compared to ogres? I doubt it, but we'll see. Who knows? I mean, goblins are really good in the greenskins. Maybe Noblars are going to be the meta for the ogres. That'd be funny. So we'll see. And then Big Bellower here. +8 leadership in an effect range 55 meters, as long as they're out of melee. That's cool. I mean, if you had leadership problems, that's alright, but you know, you can't be in melee to get it. It just seems low impact. None of it's bad. It's not as bad as the contract mechanic. There's some other 4 over here as well. So we got Arse-Belcher. Yep, that's a nice one. Arse-Belcher ability, a leadership debuff for all enemies nearby. Cool. You know, leadership debuff is cool. It's not super impactful, especially if there's going to be huge leadership debuffs. Huge leadership buffs on higher difficulties. That's not going to make a big difference. Camp Maker, unlocked by deploying a camp with this character, grants 1 control to local province. Woohoo! Oh, we're going to have major control tonight, +1 control as long as they stay in that province. So good. Not. Boommaker, unlocked by winning a battle with a unit of lead belchers in the army, grants 20% missile strength to various range units. That's alright. I mean, if you're going to go with lead belcher army, getting extra 20% missile strength, cool. That's probably the best one so far. Kin Eater, unlocked by losing a battle but killing more enemies than your opponent. Yeah, I'm good at doing that. Passive ability Kin Eater, which gives you unbreakable to this lord as long as they have over half the hit points. Well, that's shit, because most lords don't break until they're like 75% dead anyway, unless they are terrible. And if we have a look at this guy here, his leadership is 75, so that's relatively high leadership. So that is probably never going to kick in anyway. So again, with the contracts, I would probably get Creative Assembly to have another pass at this and be like, okay, are these names actually impactful at all? Or is this just fluff? Because at the moment, it definitely seems like some of them are impactful. Like the Boommaker, I like that one. But Camp Maker, +1 control to local province, that is shit. Like, that's just not much. It's just such a pitiful amount. Like, I just wouldn't bother. Because it's just, like I said, just low impact. So I hope that they take another pass at that and buff it, or yeah, just basically buff these names, these big names, because it's just the ones that they're presenting here just aren't very good. Just like the current traits that are in Warhammer 2 for most factions are better than these. Like disciplined, knowledgeable, yeah, they're just infernal dominance, that kind of stuff, just a lot better. An entrepreneur, yeah, there's just a lot better stuff that's already in the game, and I imagine that when you recruit them, oh, hang on, you can see, yeah, look, they've currently got the other traits, so that one there, the character's leadership or leadership effect +2, I think that's an existing trait. I can't remember which one it is, so I think some of the existing traits that are in Warhammer 2 will pass over to Warhammer 3. I'm still really curious about Knowledgeable because of the changes to Winds of Magic, but we'll have to wait and see with that one. Okay, so they even say, as you can see, they aren't army defining, but could use to make specific lords more his own. Yeah, it's just low impact, that's all. It's like, they definitely aren't army defining, and some of them are good, but you need to take another look at that. These are just they're a bit shit. Okay, so tech tree. We can get a closer look at that. It's pretty basic. You just start over here and then make your way towards the right. And you can ignore as much or as little as you want. And it seems to be like every sort of interval point, these points here, which it looks like, based on this, that there would be maybe 3 others. I imagine there'd be 1 at the end. So 5 in total. They increase your camp limit. There's also, because it's hovering over this one, Ogre Throng. Also, population surplus +1 for newly deployed camps. That's good. This is good technology. And army ability here, Butcher. Doesn't have a limit on it. And it says heals per second 1.6%. We'll come on to that in a second. So yeah, having an army ability here that it seems like you can just have it on all of your armies and just use it constantly. Not constantly, but cool down 120 seconds. Just keep using it on your single entities. Is really good. So the other thing to talk about is the heals per second. It seems like they're reworking healing abilities to, instead of providing a specific number of hit points, to actually provide percentage hit points. Now this is going to be a big game changer for healing based armies, and will change things like in the opposite direction, because currently heal magic benefits low hit point units that have lots of resistance the most. So for example, if you've got the vampire accounts and you're running with Cairn Wraiths and Hex Wraiths, they really benefit from heal magic because they have like half the amount of hit points of a regular unit, but they've got loads of resistances, so their hit points are worth way more than everybody else's. So you just get more bang for your buck with that. Whereas a unit of zombies, using a heck on them, they've got no resistances and really high hit points. It's just a waste of magic, because one volley of like basic archer shot will basically waste the entire spell that you did. And with spells like Earthblood, healing, instead of 336 hit points, imagine healing 1.6% per second health of a Dreadsaurian. So you're just going to be able to heal way more of like stronger units with these kind of spells. So be really interesting to see how much it changes life magic meta. It's probably going to boost it, because currently a lot of the armies that I can think of right now that are really benefiting from life magic, such as Treeman spam, Stegodon spam, basically anyone's got access to life magic. These are already units that have really high hit points, so that's gonna really help the Wood Elves quite a lot, because Treemen have a lot of hit points. But we'll just have to wait and see with that. So, but overall, I think the tech tree looks good. We don't know what any of these other ones do, but it all seems fairly useful. We can see here that they don't consume food with any of these, at least. So maybe meat. The meat mechanic doesn't seem to be as impactful for the ogres as it is for other races, unless of course you run out of meat, and I can imagine there'll be all kinds of problems if you don't feed your ogres. Yeah. And that's pretty much it there for the blog. Overall, I think it's pretty good. Obviously, I was very critical about this, but I wanted to really drive home this to hopefully give Creative Assembly enough time to, assuming they watch it, to have another pass at this, because this is something that really should be pivotal to the Ogre Kingdoms campaign playstyle, and I will just ignore it based off if this is the kind of contracts that I'm getting. So they need to go back and have another look at that. And the thing is, like, this isn't new. So many other factions have similar sort of things to this. This just isn't impactful, so they need to go back to this. It's kind of like what happened with the Forge of Daith, where they released it and it was shit. And if they had told us about it earlier, maybe we could have warned them earlier so that they could have fixed it, and then it's in a good place now. It's actually in a really good place now. But it took them a few passes to get it right. But yeah, as far as a day one DLC in terms of campaign mechanics go, it seems like the Ogre Kingdoms are really good. Okay, if you think back to Warriors of Chaos, the Warriors of Chaos literally, I'm not even joking with this, I'm not exaggerating, they have no campaign mechanics. Nothing. They're just, hey, you're a horde. Ew. They have no campaign mechanics whatsoever, and that's still the case even to this day here. Hopefully they're going to get a rework. I think they will. There's indications that they're going to get a rework with day 1 on the on Warhammer 3, because I think Be'lakor is going to be stuck in Chaos Undivided, or Warriors of Chaos, depending on what's going to happen with them. But yeah, so just a really quick summary. Love it, hate it, like it, don't care, like it. That's what I feel about all of them. And then, of course, if you want the specifics, we've already gone over that. But absolutely love this one here. This is, I think, one of the best mechanics we've seen so far across Total War Warhammer in general. I'm really looking forward to making my camps in various locations. So overall, really excited to play Ogre Kingdoms. I think they've done a great job so far, but they, again, really need to take another look at some things, because the impact of some things versus others is just, there's big differences here. Anyway, that's the end of this one. Appreciate you guys. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below about the various mechanics. Let me know what you think about camps. Let me know what you think about contracts, meat, big names, and the tech tree. I want to know. I do read the comments. I want to know your thoughts, because, you know, I might be way off base. You might be like, oh, what is that you're talking about? These contracts seem awesome. 500 gold in order to pay for 1 unit is great. You know, maybe. I don't know. You know, just let me know your thoughts. Anyway, that's the end of this one here. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you next time, fuckers. Bye.